What an amazing game on Thursday Night Football that kicked off week 2 of the NFL season. The Washington football team tops off the New York Giants in the last 5 seconds of that game with the game-winning field goal. Taylor Heinicke and the legend continues. Former Collinsville quarterback, shout out to Gwinnett County, grew up just 15, 20 minutes away from him. But he is leading the Washington football team to what is known to be, a good replacement for Ryan Fitzpatrick. In this process, we welcome you guys joining in for this episode of Time2Football. My name is Hassan Khan, the host of this show that we like to call, you guessed it, Time2Football. Glad you guys can be joining us on this Friday morning. Before I get any further into this show, I want to clarify something. My hot brunette wife asked me on air to clarify that we do not live in my mom's basement. I started the show in my mom's basement, but she said, you need to stop saying that you started the show in your mom's basement because people are going to think that we live in your mom's basement. That's not true. We don't live in my mom's basement. We live in a house. The show was started 9 years ago in my mom's basement. So just to clarify, just to make, happy wife, happy life. You know what I'm saying? So today we're going to go ahead and recap, just talk a little bit about that Thursday night game, but we're also going to show you guys the stock market of the NFL. We talk about this every Friday. It's Fantasy Friday. We talk about fantasy football on this show. So we're going to get into buys, sells, and holds of the stock market of fantasy football. And if you didn't join us last week on that episode, PredictionStrike, what it is based off their fantasy football projections. If they exceed their projections, their stock goes up. If they don't meet their expectations and they score below their projections, their stock goes down. And it's a good way that you can make some money. If you ever had that thought of, I want to invest in a player, I want to buy shares in this guy, I think this guy is a sleeper, he's going to do well. I'm going to show you guys some players that you may want to invest in and play on PredictionStrike. It's lots of fun. I've actually made a lot of money because I made some purchases, bought some shares of TJ Hawkinson, and his stock went up 119% since I bought him. So I'm going to show you guys the tips and tricks on PredictionStrike, but also we're going to talk about the highs or the overs and unders of fantasy football projections, courtesy of PrizePicks. So I'm going to give you 6 players and whether I feel like, based off their fantasy football projection for this weekend, do I take the over on that? Do I think they're going to score more points than that? Or do I take the under? Do I think they're not going to meet their expectations? But also, we're going to be answering some fantasy football questions on top of that as well, just to let you guys know that this is a very interactive show. I'm going to go ahead and interact with the guys in the chat as well. Miguel with his daily check-in says, let's go. What's up, Miguel? Hope you're doing well in Puerto Rico. Chris Bailey, yo, you've been checking in a little bit. I've noticed you. Uzi, okay, how worried are you for Gibson? Ooh, gosh, man. I invested a lot of stock in Gibson. I had the 8th overall pick in a 12-team league, and I drafted Antonio Gibson. When I could have had the opportunity to draft people like Jonathan Taylor, Nick Chubb, Aaron Jones, I chose to go with Antonio Gibson because the talent is there. The talent is so freaking there, and that was evident last night. Last night when Antonio Gibson had 13 carries for, 69 nice yards? That's 5.5 yards a carry. That's not bad. That's amazing. Why in the world is Ron Rivera and Scott Turner not really utilizing Gibson in a 3-down role? I get it. J.D. McKissic is a great player and he's talented. At the end of the day, whatever helps you win the football game, that's all that matters. But am I worried about Antonio Gibson? Not just yet, because the fact that he was getting 5.5 yards a carry off the limited touches that he had, I was watching that game and every time they were handing the ball off to Antonio Gibson, I was like, please just hand him off the ball more. He's so freaking good. He was getting 6 to 8 yards a carry, getting first downs, bulldozing past defenders like it was nothing. And I think the more that the season progresses, I think that it's going to favor in the way of Antonio Gibson. The way that people are speaking right now, I think that this trend with the last game and this game, the fact that he had 69 nice yards in this game and then 90 yards in the previous game, and people are still freaking out over that, I think you're going to be completely fine because this is the lowest of the lows for Antonio Gibson. it can only go up from here on out. J.D. McKissic, this was his best game that he's going to have of the season, barring an injury to Antonio Gibson. So if you own Antonio Gibson in fantasy football, do not be worried. You're going to get those trade offers. Please treat Antonio Gibson like he's still a first-round, second-round pick if you were to trade Antonio Gibson away. People are going to say buy low on Gibson, and if you don't own Antonio Gibson, buy low on him. Get him because he's going to do well this season. So do not be worried. It sucks. I understand. But think about it. If he got a touchdown yesterday, we wouldn't be talking about this. We're going to get into some more topics for the show. Like I mentioned, the stock market of the NFL, as well as talking about PrizePicks and the overs and unders as well. But what we do every single day, we talk about NFL news and notes that goes around the league going into this Sunday. So, NFL news and notes. Okay. The biggest news, one of the biggest news, is Ronnie Stanley. His ankle is hurt, and he missed the second consecutive practice, expected to miss a game versus the Kansas City Chiefs on Sunday Night Football. Plays for the Baltimore Ravens. Ravens, oh, goodness. It does not look good for the Ravens and their injury history. I picked them to win, and the fact that I did, I kind of regret that. But we'll see. Jameson Crowder has been activated from the COVID-19 list. He is expected to play this Sunday. DeMarcus Lawrence, we talked about yesterday how he broke his foot. He's going to be missing some significant time. We now have a timetable for that. It is now 6 to 8 weeks that he will be missing. Jamal Williams, who's going to be playing in that Monday Night Football game against the Green Bay Packers revenge game, might be a little bit limited in that game. He has a chest injury. He was limited in practice on Thursday. And that's kind of bad news for the Detroit Lions running backs because DeAndre Swift, also still dealing with that groin injury, has been limited in practice. He's expected to play. Both players are expected to play. But given the injury history of both players, does not look promising. Quentin Nelson, speaking of another injury history, still is recovering from that surgery that he had on his foot. He did not practice for a second consecutive day. Now, he did not practice, for the most part, last week. And then all of a sudden, it was a surprise that he was playing against the Seattle Seahawks. I expect the same thing to be happening this week. Quentin Nelson, going to be held out of practice, but this is just precautionary measures. He's going to be playing this Sunday, I expect. Jonnu Smith has just been added to the injury report. He has been limited in practice due to an abdomen injury. So, vital part of that Patriots offense, Jonnu Smith, be cautious and monitor his progress. He more than likely will go into Sunday being questionable. Eric Ebron, hamstring injury, did not practice. So Pat Freiermuth is in line for a higher target share against the Raiders. Ryan Fitzpatrick declines surgery, and he's expected to return in 8 weeks. If he got surgery, he might have been out for the whole season, but it looks like that he's going to be coming off that 8-week IR. The way that Heineke's playing, we'll see. It'll be drama for sure to see if Fitzpatrick can earn his job back. Josh Jacobs, ankle and toe injury, did not practice. Kenyon Drake would be the man up after him. Marquise Brown, an ankle injury, did not practice as well. And then Tyrell Williams, likely to miss Monday's game, the Detroit Lions wide receiver, likely to miss it because he is still in concussion protocol. But that is your NFL news and notes for this week, or for today at least, going into week 2. Now what we got to talk about is the stock market of the NFL. Man, I really, really, really enjoy this. I talked about this. I actually reached out to them for a partnership because I was like, this idea is amazing. I've always thought about buying shares and selling players and playing it like this is the stock market, feeling like I'm the Wolf of Wall Street with NFL players and fantasy football. And I'm having so much fun. And I talked about this yesterday. Some players that I told you guys that you need to buy stocks in right now so you can make real legitimate cash. TJ Hawkinson, okay? He was going at 78 cents a share, and now his stock is going up to $1.60 a share. That's a 119% increase. So I bought him at 73 cents in the offseason, knowing that he was going to have a good season, made some money off of that. Jacoby Myers, I bought him last week at 71 cents. I talked about him on the show. Now he's up to 76 cents. Like, some players are just going up and up and up, and I'm here to tell you guys which players you need to invest in. So whether you want to play this game make some legitimate cash out of it, or whether you just want to hear the segment just to see, oh, maybe the stocks as far as fantasy football and my fantasy football lineup, this player is trending up. Okay, that's good to know. So I'm going to show you some players that you need to buy, some players that you need to sell, and some players that maybe you need to hold just for now and not really freak out over them and jump the gun and sell them just yet. So I'm going to give you 3 players to buy, 3 players to sell, 1 player to hold. The first player that I'm going to tell you to buy is going to be Le'Veon Bell. Now, I don't expect Le'Veon Bell to have a big snap count or get a lot of touches in this Ravens offense, but the fact that he's going for 15 cents a share, his price is going down. He's down 36%. That's down 5 cents. He's extremely cheap, as you can read by the analysis, worth a flyer, low risk, high reward. Listen, I know it's going to be Latavius Murray and Tyson Williams in the backfield for the Ravens. But what if Le'Veon Bell outscores his fantasy football projections and you can make some money out of that? Okay, you can buy legitimately 20, 30, 40 shares and spend no more than $5 on Le'Veon Bell. So I have him as a must buy this week in PredictionStrike, but that's just my opinion. I think I'm worthy of taking that risk. I'm willing to take that risk, knowing that Le'Veon Bell has a potential to be a solid asset for that already depleted running back room for the Baltimore Ravens. Okay, so buy number 2, player that I think that you have to watch for their stock to go up, and that is Tyler Higbee. Higbee played a lot of snaps for the LA Rams. As a matter of fact, he ran routes on all of Matthew Stafford's dropbacks. Every time they passed the ball, Tyler Higbee was running routes. Okay, he's a little bit expensive, going for $2.71 a share. It's a little bit of a typo here, but it should be plus 2.31%. He's trending up, so he went up 6 cents. But the fact that he's running all routes with Matthew Stafford, there's no Gerald Everett in that offense to split time with. This offense has just gotten way better. It's just a different look with Stafford. And he's second in targets on the team after Cooper Kupp last week against the Chicago Bears. And I think that's going to be a regular. I think that Robert Woods is on a slight decline, and that could be because of the emergence of Tyler Higbee and the emergence of Van Jefferson as well. I've stated this multiple times on the show. But I would say that Tyler Higbee is a player to buy in on for PredictionStrike for the stock market, and maybe even for the 2021 season, just in general for fantasy football. Now, this next one is a player that I'm going to buy in on. Now, let me explain. This is just to make money. This isn't to help your fantasy football lineups per se, because I don't think he's going to be fantasy relevant by any means. But just to make some money, some quick cash, you may want to look into investing just for this week, David Johnson. I don't think that David Johnson is going to be the 3-down back, the main back that goes to Mark Ingram, maybe even Phillip Lindsay. He's admitted that he has to take a step back in that offense. But he's going for 38 cents a share. He's very, very cheap right now. And I'm going to talk about him a little bit later when I talk about the overs and unders for fantasy football projections. But the Texans will trail in many games. So Johnson will be used on passing downs, not fantasy relevant, but will outperform projections in PPR. In PPR leagues, on PrizePicks, when we get to that segment, he's going, as his projection is 6.5 fantasy points. I mean, easily against the Cleveland Browns, when you're going to be down by potentially a big margin, I would expect Johnson to get 4 or 5 targets in this game. And if he makes all 5 receptions, there's 5 points right there. All he needs at that point, 5 receptions for 15 yards, 4 receptions for 25 yards, 3 receptions for 35 yards. He's going to outscore his projections. So if you want to make some cash just for this week and then sell him on later, David Johnson is a player that you may want to buy in on. Now, those are your buys. Now, who are some players that you need to sell? Some players that I'm not too big on for the fantasy football season. Well, I've talked about this guy multiple times on the show, and it is Miles Sanders. I like the player, I like the talent, but I have to go with what I'm hearing. And what I'm hearing is that the Eagles just aren't confident in Miles Sanders being that official 3-down back, workhorse back for the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, he's going for $1.17 a share, which is very cheap, but his price is going up. That's why I would sell him, because if his price continues to go up after a good game, Kenneth Gainwell's in the mix. He's going to get maybe 50% of the snaps. I don't think that Miles Sanders is going to outperform his fantasy football projections for the most part of the NFL season. So if I were you, I would go ahead and just get rid of Miles Sanders. I wouldn't really take the risk on holding on to him. Now, sell number 2, player I'd want to get rid of. I mean, this one it's pretty obvious at this point on who it is. It's Raheem Mostert. I mean, the reasoning is pretty obvious at that point. Just he's hurt, okay? And now here's a difference though. You could have a hurt player and hold on to their stock going into next season, but I'm not too big on Raheem Mostert after the season. He's becoming an official free agent going into the 2021 or 2022 offseason, and he's not worth holding on to. He's already in his 30s. He was an undrafted free agent, so the reason why he was undrafted, he's talented, yes, but he had so much success as an undrafted free agent because of the team around him, because of the coaching, because of the offensive line and the system that they run. So I think that if he goes anywhere else besides San Francisco, he's not going to make that much of an asset. He's going for $2.39 a share, a little pricey, down 15%. That should be minus 44 cents, not plus 44. But you get the point. Raheem Mostert is a sell for me. Got to get rid of him. I'm not too big on him after the season, honestly. And now sell number 3. This is a player that you got to get rid of after a big Thursday night football game. Sell him while he's still high, and that is J.D. McKissic. McKissic had the best game that he will ever have this season. And now people are going to flip out over Antonio Gibson, saying, okay, well, J.D. McKissic is going to be in there. He's going to get 50% of the... No, it's not going to happen. It's not. J.D. McKissic is going to be a nuisance with Antonio Gibson. Don't get me wrong. He's going to have some good games, but the game that he had yesterday was the best game that he will ever have this season. Gibson is clearly the better back, and he will get many more touches. You just have to be patient. So the fact that he had a 40% increase in his stock share price, this is now the time to sell on J.D. McKissic. Game script allowed McKissic to be the main back yesterday because it was just back and forth scoring. There's no defense for the most part. But moving on forward, there's going to be a lot of defense. Maybe not next week. They face the Buffalo Bills, but I do feel like that there is going to be a lot of defense, and the game script could favor Antonio Gibson a lot more. So those are the players that I would sell. Now, I'm going to give you one player to hold just because a lot of people are freaking out on him and are just ready to get rid of him. But part of the stock market is you have to make an investment for the future, and that is Jordan Love. People were freaking out when Aaron Rodgers came back. People bought a lot of Jordan Love stock thinking, okay, he's got to take over. He's going to be the main guy in Green Bay. Now they're selling him. I've seen this in recent transactions. He's going for $1.05 a share. That's not pricey at all. Rodgers is more likely to be traded after the 2021 season. This is last season in Green Bay. I don't know whether it's Denver or another team, but Rodgers is more than likely going to be traded. Many people are selling Love shares after the return of Rodgers, but Love is an investment. That's what it's about. Buy him while he's cheap now, and then you'll be happy about it in the future. But those are some players that you need to buy, you need to sell, and you need to hold on to, courtesy of PredictionStrike. So click the link in the description, start playing, use the promo code T2F, and for every $20 you invest in, I think you get $10 credited to your account for your first $20 that you put in. So well worth it. I think you also get a free share out of it. I'm not too concerned or too sure about what the gift is, but use the promo code T2F. It's worth it. You get a nice prize out of that. We're going to take a quick break right now. I'm going to move on to PrizePicks, overs and unders, but I just want to let you guys know that this is interactive. So I'm going to go ahead and answer some questions for you guys, just about one or two. Mike Pauley, please pick 2 full PPR: Jacoby Myers, Corey Davis, Marvin Jones, Brandon Cooks, and Antonio Brown. Dude, this is a very good problem that you have. I'm going to pick in PPR Jacoby Myers and Brandon Cooks, or Antonio Brown. This is what I hate. I have the same problem. I am debating whether I want to start Jamar Chase, Deebo Samuel, or Jacoby Myers in my flex. And it's like, I think all 3 are going to have good games. So I don't think you could go wrong with either one. But my 2 would be Jacoby Myers and Brandon Cooks. Those would be my main guys. Let's move on to talking about some overs and unders for fantasy football. So PrizePicks is a site where you get to basically pick whether a player is going to have over the amount of fantasy points that the site is projecting or under the amount of fantasy points that they are projecting. That's it. It's just as simple as that. And if you're correct, you win some money. If you're incorrect, you lose some money. So what I'm doing with this segment right here is I'm going to show you some players that you may want to pick the over on, and some players you may want to pick the under on, and some players that we aren't that high on. So let's start first with 3 players that I would pick the under on. Some players that I'm just not as high on. I think the first one would have to be Mike Davis. He has a tough matchup against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and he's projected to score 12.5 PPR points. So it is PPR. So he could meet that expectation, but I think he's going to go take the under. We saw what the Buccaneers did to Ezekiel Elliott, to Tony Pollard in that run game. And I think Mike Davis might be in the same boat. And it might come down to the point where they're going to have to pass the ball a lot. They're going to have to stray away from the run game. Maybe Mike Davis is utilized in the passing game, but I think that's going to favor more so Calvin Ridley, who's targeted a lot last week, and Kyle Pitts, who's expected to have a bounce-back game. Maybe even a little bit of Russell Gage in there. So I am 70% confident that Mike Davis is going to score under 12 PPR points. So it's kind of confident, but it's not like the most confident just because PPR, like I said, they might be down a lot. They might be passing with the ball. So Mike Davis, I would say, is my first player that you would want to pick the under on. Another player that I'd say that you'd want to pick the under on that's expected to score a lot of fantasy points, but I just don't see it this week. It's Justin Jefferson. Now, let me rephrase. I do expect that Justin Jefferson is going to score a lot of fantasy points, but the fact that he's projected to score 18 fantasy points, I think that might be reaching for the stars a little bit against the new and improved look of the Arizona Cardinals defense. I don't think that he's going to meet that expectation. And we saw last week against the Cincinnati Bengals, it was the Adam Thielen show. It might favor in the direction of Justin Jefferson, yes. But I think that against the Cardinals defense, like I said, the secondary is very good. The new improved, the defensive line is great. They're going to get to Kirk Cousins a lot. I don't think that Justin Jefferson is going to excel that 18 fantasy point projection. Now, I am 75% confident, a little bit more confident in this, but we all know Justin Jefferson. He can outperform. He does really well. But the thing with PrizePicks is I like to look at which players are projected to score a lot of points because that increases your chances of getting that prediction right because you never know. Like a player could have a very bad game. Last week, we projected that Alvin Kamara would score less than 23 fantasy points just because that number was just very, very high. And we were correct. And speaking of last week, Ashley, out of the 6 players that we predicted, 5 were correct, I believe. No, 4 were correct. 1 was incorrect, and then 1 was a tie. It was Philip Lindsay, so that doesn't count. But just to kind of give you guys an insight on our predictions for these overs and unders. Now, the last player that I would pick the under on in PrizePicks this week, I think it's going to have to be Mark Ingram because the Texans, the game script last week showed that, okay, well, Mark Ingram is the main guy. That's not true. I don't think that Mark Ingram is going to be the lead back per se every single week because the Texans are going to be playing from behind all the time. He's projected right now to score 8 fantasy points, which is not a lot. I understand. But unless he falls in the end zone, I don't think that he's going to excel and exceed these PrizePicks projections. Like I said with David Johnson when I was talking earlier about buying stock in him, you've got to look at the passing situations. It's Philip Lindsay and David Johnson that are going to be the main backs in those third downs, those passing situations. Mark Ingram is the ground and pound kind of guy. And the fact that he got 24 carries on 86 yards, or 86 yards on 24 carries last week, that isn't that high of a yards per carry average, number one, against a lesser defense in the Jacksonville Jaguars. And number two, against the Cleveland Browns, who limited Clyde Edwards-Helaire to just 3 yards a carry. Nah, I'm not taking Mark Ingram in this. So that is your unders. Now I'm going to talk about the overs for PrizePicks. And the first player that I'm kind of confident on that will exceed their fantasy football projections, it's got to be Emmanuel Sanders. People are overlooking the fact that he had 8 targets last week. People are overlooking and not really following with offseason news that Gabriel Davis is not the second receiver in the Buffalo Bills offense. It's Emmanuel Sanders. And this was confirmed by a lot of beat reporters, beat writers, that Emmanuel Sanders is going to be taking that John Brown role in that Buffalo Bills offense. So he's projected to score 9 PPR fantasy points. I think he's going to go over that with Josh Allen in this passing game that's going to have a rebound game. And I'm 75% confident that Emmanuel Sanders exceeds that expectations. Now, number 2 for overs that I would pick on PrizePicks, I think they're going to exceed their expectations. I'm going to have to go with the other Texans running back, and we just talked about him, David Johnson, 6.5 fantasy points, PPR. PPR, so that's easy to get. So while his projection is 6.5, I would go on PrizePicks, and I would go ahead and pick the over on him. And I'm 75% confident that they're going to be trailing from behind, that they're going to be passing the ball a lot, and David Johnson at least will get 3 to 4 targets in this game. And if he turns that to 3 receptions for 20 yards, guess what? That's 5 points right there. You just need 15 more rushing yards at that point. Like, the chances of exceeding that are just extremely high. I like David Johnson as an over for this week. And the last player that I would go ahead and take the over on, we talked about him last week, and he exceeded our prediction of you should take the over on him. And this is if he plays. But I'm going to say Jonnu Smith is our last over for PrizePicks. 8 projected points in PPR. I think he's going to go over that. He was projected 8 last week, and he got about 9.8 or 10 fantasy points or so. 5 receptions for 42 yards, and had a carry for 6 yards as well. He's the main guy in New England's offense. And the game that he had last week, even though it wasn't his best performance, that's probably going to be one of his worst performances in that Patriots offense. And I'm 80% confident that Jonnu Smith is going to excel and exceed that 8.0 PrizePicks projection. Now, given the abdomen injury that just popped up, he may not play, but if he does, monitor that. Jonnu Smith, I think you should take the over. But that is your PrizePicks overs and unders for week 2. Now to get into everybody's favorite part of the show, this is fantasy football questions that you guys leave in the chats and in the comments, and I get to you guys and answer those questions. So before this weekend, let's go ahead and take some time to answer some of these questions. John Fontanilla, Gaskin or Harris PPR? You got to go with Harris, man. Harris is one of the top 5 leading rushers in the NFL in rushing yards right now, had over 20 carries on the ground, and against the New York Jets is expected to get past or exceed his projections for fantasy football. Gaskin, on the other hand, I would hold on him on your bench. Could be a flex player, but I don't know. It's not looking promising for the Miami Dolphins running backs. What else do we got here? Should I trade Derrick Henry for Najee and CeeDee? This is from V. Lock-in. Yes. Najee Harris played 100% of the snaps for Pittsburgh. 100%. Another running back on Pittsburgh didn't even get a shot. The fact that he played 100% should tell you, yes, I should be investing in Najee Harris. Now, he could have had a touchdown, and it could have been a different story because there was a 3rd down at the goal line. If Ben Roethlisberger just led Najee Harris with a pass just a little bit further out, and Najee didn't really have to stop and turn around and get that pass, we could be talking about a different story. We could be talking about, Najee Harris is actually pretty legit because he would have had 6 more fantasy points at that, plus a yards that he would have gotten. So, Najee Harris is very buy low right now. And CeeDee Lamb, like I said, I think he's a top 10 receiver. I've said this on this channel multiple times. He was a wide receiver 8 in our draft rankings. Last week against the Buccaneers proved why he is wide receiver 8. Plus, Michael Gallup is hurt. So CeeDee Lamb will be seeing many more targets. Najee and CeeDee over Derrick Henry. I would take it. Let's see. What else do we've got? Scar17S. Tyson Williams or Jamal Williams full PPR. I'm going to have to go with Tyson over Jamal in this game. Like I mentioned, Jamal is a little bit banged up. Plus, on top of that, DeAndre Swift involved in the passing game. Williams is as well, and Williams will get some goal line carries as well and try to punch it into the end zone. But Tyson Williams, he's expected, even though he's not going to have a full 3-down workload, he's expected to be the main back. He's expected to be the most fresh, have the most set of fresh legs out of any of the running backs in Baltimore. So I would put my trust in Tyson Williams this week. Deej, what's your take on Ronald Jones and DJ Moore? DJ Moore, I'm not actually too low on. I'm okay with starting DJ Moore as a flex play this week. I don't think that he's going to – it's a tough offense. Yeah, and Sam Darnold is a must-sit. But, I mean, if you need some wide receiver help in a flex spot, you're kind of desperate. I like the talent of DJ Moore, and I think this might be a good week to start DJ Moore if you need a good flex play. Now, for Ronald Jones, I'm a little cautious on him, even though he has a great matchup against the Atlanta Falcons, even though he's been labeled as the starter for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. What does that mean? What does that mean? We don't know what is going to be happening with the Buccaneers running back room. Leonard Fournette was the main target for the running backs. It wasn't Giovanni Bernard like we all expected. So I think that Ronald Jones being labeled as a starter could mean that, okay, early on he's going to have a role, but what does that mean? 10, 11, 12 carries, and then Leonard Fournette gets the other half of it? I don't know. It's too unpredictable. So yeah, I'm a safe than sorry kind of guy, so I would go with DJ Moore over Ronald Jones. What else do we've got? Let's scroll a little bit back to see what else we've got. Chris Bailey, you said, I played Gibson over Tyson Williams. Should I start Hunt over Damian Harris? And then you said also, man, past 2 games is killing me. Yeah, man, I'm sorry, dude. I'm sorry. I squeaked out a victory last week with Antonio Gibson just because I had other players that did well. But like I said, man, be patient. This is the worst. If the worst that Antonio Gibson can do in fantasy football is 8 points, I'm confident in Antonio Gibson at that point. Okay, maybe not meeting that first round, second round projection talent just yet in fantasy football, but if 8 points is a safe floor, I'm okay with that. I would take it for now, knowing that he's going to have better games ahead. But to answer your question, should I start Hunt over Damian Harris? Hunt is just way too unpredictable, man. I would go with Damian Harris just because I know that he's going to get 20-plus carries in this game, that he's going to get more yards per carry, we expect, than he did against the Miami Dolphins, against the New York Jets. So I like Harris a lot more than Hunt, just because the game script could allow Nick Chubb to get a lot of carries, Kareem Hunt only get like 6-7 fantasy points. Aftershock value. Do I drop Big Ben for Sam Darnold or Zach Wilson? Ooh. I mean, at that point, you're going to have to look at your matchups. You're going to have to look at who your starting quarterback is. If it's Big Ben, I would stick with Ben Roethlisberger. But if you want to talk about who is your starting quarterback and who you want as your backup quarterback, you may want to look into Zach Wilson for the future, because I think in the first half of the NFL season, Zach Wilson may not be doing that well. He's going to make some mistakes. And then in the second half, he's going to make some mistakes as well. He's a rookie. But I think that Zach Wilson is going to turn it around. He's going to be a very good player. He's going to end 2021 on a positive note. May not make the playoffs, but he's going to show that he's the quarterback of the future just because of the natural ability that he has. Oh, wow. We're talking in all caps right now. Sensei, would you trade Calvin Ridley for Keenan Allen or Derrick Henry? This is your team right now. Kyler Murray, Justin Herbert. You've got Adams, DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, CMC, Saquon Barkley. So you want to trade Calvin Ridley for Keenan Allen or Derrick Henry? Are you in an 8-team league? Because that is a pretty deep bench and lineup that you've got right there. I don't think I would do either. Maybe Derrick Henry. If you can snag Derrick Henry for Calvin Ridley, I would do that just because it seems like you're good off at receiver. But, I think the only weak point is the unpredictability of Saquon Barkley. So if you want a safe running back in Derrick Henry over Saquon Barkley, I'm going to go ahead and say that. But I will say early start of the week for week 3, Saquon Barkley against the Atlanta Falcons. Deej, thank you, man. Or thank you, Hassan. You're the man. Hell, you the man, Deej. Uzi, what are your thoughts on Mike Williams this week? Buy in on Mike Williams. I love Mike Williams. I wanted to trade for Mike Williams. He was actually picked 1 pick ahead of me in my fantasy football draft. You know how big I was. I had him as a talent of a fourth or fifth rounder on my draft board. Got taken away from me by someone. But I ended up with Deebo Samuel, which didn't turn out to be too bad. Buy in on Mike Williams. He's been talking a little bit of smack talk with the Dallas Cowboys this week, so maybe he needs to back it up. I like Mike Williams a lot against the Dallas Cowboys. Let's answer a couple of more. Miguel, I trade Cole Kmet for Jonnu Smith. Is this a good trade? You get Jonnu Smith? Abso-freaking-lutely. I think that Jonnu Smith has the upside of being a top 10 tight end this year, just because of how athletic and how gifted he is. And Hunter Henry, we know his injury history. If he gets injured, it's by far Jonnu Smith. It's going to be a top 10 tight end. So I would trade Kmet for Smith. Let's answer one more that we've got. Let's go early on for you guys that have been waiting. Jack102 Abel, Allen Robinson or Swift in the flex PPR. I'm going to have to go with Swift because Robinson, I do have him as a must start. I'm not confident in the Bears offense. Not saying that I'm confident in the Lions offense either, but the fact that he caught 8 out of 11 targets DeAndre Swift did last week shows that he's still involved in the game plan, even if they are down. So Swift, with his rushing ability, mixed in with what is a stat line known to be a good stat line by a wide receiver, a stat line that 8 receptions out of 11 targets easily could match or could exceed the stat line of Allen Robinson. But mix in the rushing ability, you got to go with DeAndre Swift in this game. But that'll about do it for this week of Time to Football, or this episode. I keep on saying week because I used to do a weekly show, and now it is a daily show. But we appreciate you guys joining us for the duration of this week. We hope you guys had some fun. Hey, keep on asking your questions and subscribe to this channel as well. We have a Discord that you guys have been very interactive in and asking your questions. So link is in the description if you want more insight on that. And with all that said, thank you guys so much for watching this episode of Time to Football. Best of luck in fantasy. And I will see you guys Monday. Yes. See you guys Monday. Take care.